organize quickly who in this room is in favor of a military intervention in Syria.
Military intervention?
Yeah.
We could have a discussion about army.
On the R2, as an ultimate recourse of the R2B.
Are you saying no or
No.
further back in time?
No, I mean now, because I mean now, I'm in favor. I mean we are here sitting at the Security Council, and we are saying, you did say, or I say, we can no longer allow this to happen, colleagues. We have to take an action. Who is in favor of a military intervention? Yeah. 2, 3. Who is against a military intervention?
Can I just caveat that? I'm against military intervention now because there's not a reasonable chance of success as per the document. But if it being during the initial stages, then absolutely.
Yeah, but I would say that at this stage, I have a mixed feeling, frankly speaking. I have a mixed feeling, and what I did was at the end of last year to engage many members of the council to express really my concern about the situation in Syria, and ultimately to issue a public statement calling on really the need to find a quick solution so that we can avoid another tragedy in Syria. Because if there is a fall tomorrow of the Assad regime, what measures have been put in place to prevent retaliation against the Alawite minority simply because they are identified as. So to say that, as you said, if we have to talk about responsibility to protect, I don't see the hierarchy, in fact, first pillar, second pillar, third pillar, because we can move straight. But I think if we manage really to build the bridge I was referring earlier between the early warning and the early action. In Syria, my office issued a statement from day one when the uprising in Syria started. No action was taken. And to my view, at that time, there was certainly a room for EU or for EU members individually to engage with Syria and to find a solution. There was a room certainly also to impose at that time type of sanction which might frighten Assad. I don't know, but at the end we ended by this situation which led to thousands and thousands of deaths. But just to say that one of the reasons why really I welcomed this report is because of the also the emphasis on prevention. Because at the end of the day, if the EU and its membership succeed in increasing their activities in the field of prevention by further engaging their partners, because many, to speak about countries from Africa, many of them count a lot on EU support. And whenever there is a crisis also in those African countries, the EU taxpayers contribute a lot. Because whenever, as Madam Brown was saying, whenever there is a crisis, you have a exodus of refugees, you have all the development plan put in place in jeopardy. So that's why I say the earlier you engage them, the better. Take the case of, for instance, today, Guinea, or just better, let's refer to the case of Mali, which ended with the crisis we know. I was in Mali before the coup. That day I had a meeting with President Atete, the leaders of the Tuareg were coming out of his office. Here's a question. Have you met this? Yes. You know, I'm facing problem with this Tuareg. He said, the international community did not come through to assist as they pledged to do. We had a plan to develop projects in the north to make sure that the youth get employed, blah, blah, blah. But not all of them come through, and we are facing a difficult situation. And I'm someone who wants a peaceful solution in that area. I'm not a va-t-en-guerre, someone who is ready to go to war like his colleague, the president of Niger, the then president of Niger, Tangier. But what I discovered later on was that there was such a bad governance in Mali. Maybe certainly some have come and contributed. Articles were referring for some contribution made by France. And still, I'm sure the EU had also made investment there. You take the army, the Malian army, which is almost non-existent. The US put $10 million to train these people. So that is to say, unless we come, and here we are returning again to a notion which was very close to my heart, the notion of conditionality as well. And today, we have also other tools. We have other tools, and that is where I say the sanction to me constitute an important tool in the responsibility to protect. Anand was saying the other day that in the frame of his mediation in Kenya after the events, that the decision taken by the US to deny entry visa to people who were in a red list, and later on to extend it to their wives and children, made a contribution to diffuse. And that is why I said we should maybe, particularly in these phases where we are still promoting the strengthening of the R2P concept, we should definitely try to de-dramatize that political and military dimension of the R2P so that we can strengthen the consensus which was reached in 2005. But unfortunately, when we see what is happening in Syria, the lack of early action in Syria, because of what? Because of, we all know that there is not a united position within the Council. Had the Council agreed on a united position, I'm sure we would have saved many lives. But where is then the difficulty? Some states, I was saying that we need to have some ethical rules to be imposed to those members of the Security Council. You know, and say at the end of the day, your economic interest, your political interest. I mean, if Russia is today in one camp, what's the reason for it? If the others are supporting the other camp. So, and that's where I say we need more ethics. I mean, politics, that's also ethics. And the same ethical rules which are applied at the national level, I think should be also applied at the international level. And that's when we will gain more credibility. We can know, but we cannot be that too much idealistic. You know, and I am maybe too idealist, but the Russian ambassador in New York is not idealist. He will care first about it. But that should not be a reason for us to close our hands and say, well, we have to continue to engage them. We have, at some stage, maybe to come more strongly about it. Because we have a responsibility. That responsibility is to protect the population who are at risk. We have all the tools which have enabled us to measure the level of risk they have been facing and what have we done with it. And we need maybe to find a way during the coming debate on the report of the Secretary General to be more open when we talk about the state responsibility and prevention, which will be the focus of this report. What measures have been taken by member states? We'll be circulating a questionnaire to all member states, and also we will look for the input from also members of the civil society. Because in my view, we should not lose hope. Yesterday, the SG called it for the Security Council to establish this intervention force with muscle, to operate in the DRC. I hope that that intervention force will help to stop the atrocities which are being committed in the Kivu area, where women are raped, children are being recruited as child soldiers, people are being killed, houses are being burned. I think one needs to do something. Would the Secretary Council at the end make a favorable decision on it? I hope it will. And then of course, some of the countries, I understand, who are deploying their troops there are a bit afraid because, well, this may have a negative implication for their troops who might be killed. I mean, one has to take a risk. Hadn't Uganda, Burundi decided to get engaged in Somalia, the fragile, I would say, situation we have now, we would not have it in Somalia. And how many people have died? More than 1,000 soldiers have so far died in this Somalia crisis. And if you go back to ECOMOG in Sierra Leone, how many Nigerian soldiers have been killed in that operation? Never Obasanjo did reveal it publicly. That was really something, and they did to rescue. And I should say that thanks also to the support given by the United Kingdom at the time. When this ECOMOG troop left, I mean, you had the rebel, for example, they were smart, they have their strategy. Those people think that, well, they have moved them out, but they, after the rainy season, they appear and start cutting hands and everything. That's why I say I do not exclude military intervention, that is a tool, but a tool which has to be used as an ultimate recourse. But let's try to use as much as we can the tools which are within the Chapter 6 of the 1945 Charter, the UN Charter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yang. Your call will not go unnoticed here in Brussels, I'm sure. I mean, in the presence, of course, of officials of the European Union itself, and helped by this excellent report, which CEPS was very glad, to give attention to and a platform to for its presentation. I would like to thank, at this stage, we've exhausted our time. To thank everyone, especially the speakers, for their contributions. Of course, to Professor Mayer as co-chair of the task force for presenting also the findings of the task force in its report. And I'd like to invite you to join me in a hand to thank the speakers and, of course, the organizer.